Hello. It's finally warming up here, and it started to rain now. I don't know if you can hear the rain with this microphone. And it's time for another video in the Bhagavad Gita series. This is always from my version of the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of the Blessed One. Okay? Which, if you like, you can get, but I can't at this time get any royalties or anything from it, so if you want to get it for yourself. If you want to get something to support me, buy the Magician's I Ching. So, in our last week, or rather, in our last video of the Bhagavad Gita series, we've been talking about the practice of the yoga of awareness. And now we continue that in a single verse in chapter 2, verse 53. When your interest in religion is no longer motivated by your desires, you will achieve absolute transcendental enlightenment. Then you have achieved union. So there's a few things to say about this. We have to start, I think, with the very last word there, which is union. So union is the goal of the mystic. And it is, in fact, the closest one can get to being able to express in a word the concept of enlightenment. The only other word that is equally good would perhaps be emptiness, because those become the same thing at that point. That's why you can't really describe it, because at the point of enlightenment, you're beyond not just duality, but you're beyond the monad, you're beyond the single thing. So in Sanskrit, there's a term for it called Advaita, which means not two-ness, which is different from oneness. But union means that not two-ness. It means these two separate things, I and thou, right, me and you, that are coming together to become not two. They're the union of opposites that annihilate each other at every point that they connect, because suddenly there can't be an I that is apart from the all, and there's no, as soon as there isn't an I, there is no all, because there can't be any all except in the context of the I. So if there's no question of separateness, the moment that there is that approach towards union, then the idea of everythingness also disappears. So this is transcendence. And there are a couple of words that mystics use, especially Indian mystics, that need to be understood in the context of that idea that I just talked about. One of them is union, right? Another one is yoga. Yoga is to unite. Yoga means union. They are the same thing. And a third is love. Love is also union. Love, or devotion, is a practice of union. The devotion is the practice. Love is the expression. So I guess that's a third word besides union and emptiness that can describe the condition of awakening, of enlightenment. And if you're talking about love in a mystical text, or if you're talking about union, or if you're talking about yoga, if it's a mystical text of a genuine nature, then you're really talking about the same thing whenever you're bringing any of those up. Love never just means, well, I mean, unless it's very contextually obvious, it doesn't just mean like love for somebody else. It doesn't really mean this kind of love of your fellow man necessarily. It doesn't mean any of the lesser concepts that we might associate with love. Love in the mystical sense means enlightenment. It means that union with the whole. So that's something I want to clear up there. And in the process, we've also cleared up what the idea of transcendental means here. So when your interest in religion is no longer motivated by your desires, you will have achieved absolute transcendental enlightenment. Then you will have achieved union. So absolute transcendental enlightenment is union. And you get there, you'll remember in the previous video, we were talking about how up to verse 52, it talks about how when the consciousness moves beyond the dark forest of illusion, and so you're not just trying to rely on seeking knowledge or basing your view of reality on that which you already think you know. Those are the two kind of fundamental modes of understanding things, right? One is I'm going to keep trying to get it in my head. I'm going to look up the facts. I'm going to figure out the technical details. I'm going to read into the information I have and extrapolate until I get to something really big and complicated, which will still not be the thing, right? Or I'm going to make up a pat answer based on that limited data I have, and that's going to be what I'm going to cling to as a belief, right? So those are two extremes that are ways of remaining in the forest and not seeing beyond the dark forest of illusion, right? Looking at the vaster picture, because you can't get there from the mind. That's what most of these last few videos in the Gita series have been talking about. So that's what is meant in this verse. When your interest in religion is no longer motivated by desires, your fundamental interest in religion is motivated at a lower level by certain desires and at higher levels by other desires. At the lower level, the desire of social inclusion, or the desire of respectability, or the desire to show off to other people, or to have influence, or to have power, or money, or whatever other reason you might have for being involved in religion. At the higher level, you could say that there's a desire. The last desire is what the Buddhists call it, right? Which is the desire to transcend, the desire to be enlightened, which is the last thing that has to still be overcome. It's only when the undertaking of the spiritual work is not motivated by anything other than pure will, unassuaged of purpose, then you end up getting an approach to, you have the path to that state of union. Because as long as it's about you setting the agenda, it can't happen. And you can try in all these different ways, but it won't happen, right? You have to be doing the mystical practice for its own sake, without lust of result, without the expectation of anything. We also can't just pretend that. You can't just say, oh yeah, I don't care, right? The way to get there isn't that. It isn't mentally trying to deny yourself your desire. It's to get into the moment. It's to show up. And when you're really present, you have to be able to start to look at your spiritual practice as the reward itself. The moment that you're doing it, you're not doing meditation or yoga or qigong or studying the holy texts or studying techniques of ritual or any of those things, or and everything from basic meditation to high magic if you want, right? But whatever it is you're doing, you're not doing it to get to some point B. The fact that you're doing it is what rewards you. That is what it gives you if you let it. So you have to approach the sadhana as its own reward. Approach the practice as what the goal is itself. To do it there, to be there in that moment, in that sacred moment, give your very best at that moment. There's no other goal. There's no other end point. There's no other result. If you can do that, then you begin to practice genuine spirituality.